Hey YouTube, how's it going? Kevin Cleary here with a little discussion video. I want to talk a little about titanium frame locks today. So I've got a few here with me. There's the 0630, there's the TI Military, Farium Forge Ferrex, ZT0562, Boker Federal, 0560. Okay, and I purposely tried to hold these all up lock side first. 0801. So all of these are titanium frame lock knives. All right, and they demonstrate something that is sort of a trend in the industry right now. And who knows how long it's going to be here? Maybe it'll be around forever. But the trend is that we like titanium. Okay, we do. So I want to talk today about why we like it, what is good about it, what's so cool about titanium, why I like titanium frame locks, because I certainly do. I also want to talk about what to look for if you're going to buy a tie frame lock. Most of these I have reviews on, so you can always check those out. But there are some general things that I think, I would want or I would look for now, having some experience and some use on a number of titanium frame locks. I want to talk about the hype that I think exists, because I think they do get overhyped a little bit. And finally, I'll make some recommendations, things I look for, things that I would maybe want to avoid if I was buying my first titanium frame lock. Okay, so what do we like about it? Number one, I think it's just cool. Okay, I can remember as a kid in cartoons, if there was a spaceship made of titanium, or I think there was a transformer that had a titanium shield, and if there was a prison, the doors made of titanium, it was just like indestructible, and there's nothing you can do with it, and man, we might as well just give up because it's titanium, right? So I think there's still that public perception. And if you show somebody a knife, you pull out your knife to cut something, and they say, "Oh, that's a cool knife." You say, "Oh yeah, it's Elmax steel. That's not going to mean much to them. G10 handle. That's not going to mean much to them." When you say titanium on the frame side, they're like, "Whoa, it's titanium? So cool, right?" So even public perception kind of buys into the titanium hype. All right, so that's number one. It's just cool. Number two, it's a preferred material for makers. Most of if you're like me and you love to look at custom knives, even though you're not going to be buying any $2,000 knives, it's still fun to look at them. They're almost all titanium frame locks. Okay, so some of my favorite makers. If I'm looking through their website and I'm watching videos by Jim Skelton about their knives, they're going to almost always be titanium frame locks. And because of that, then when I go so I can't buy a GTC, but I can buy a Federal, a Boker Federal. It's going to be even the same material as the real GTC, which is pretty awesome, right? Like, that's kind of cool. And maybe, I'm not going to buy a Hinderer, but I can buy a 0560. Again, pretty neat. So there's that design. What would you say? There's that influence of designers, and that's, every industry has that. Okay, whether it be clothing or cars or whatever, custom designs and interesting designs that are found from custom makers, that always exerts an influence on an industry. And certainly that's the case with folding knives. Okay, we see our favorite designers making knives in titanium, and we want that. All right. There are some practical reasons they like it. Titanium is known, it's light for its strength. It's machinable, it's workable, it has good elasticity, it can be finished and anodized in a bunch of different ways. So all those are sort of practical things that makers like, that kind of translate down to you and I. All right. It is fairly strong. Okay. It's a strong material. Makes a good robust folder. Probably my strongest tie frame lock is my Farium Forge Ferrex. I love this knife. It's hard to express how much I really like it. And one of the reasons I like it is it's just very hard use. This is a really tough, durable blade. Okay, and part of that is because of the titanium construction. Now there are some weak points. Okay, don't be deceived. Okay, into thinking that tie frame locks are the strongest out there. in order to get a tie frame lock to function properly, there has to be a relief cut, and that relief cut does introduce a weak point into the design. Now there are better and worse ways. I think one of the best I've seen is, I'm going to go back to the Ferrex here for a second. Notice one, that the relief cut is very small. Let me compare it to, there's the 0630. So the relief cut is very small, but it's actually 3D milled on the inside. So inside here where you can't see, there's actually more material taken out. And so they've kept it very strong by including, essentially including webs. They've made this like a floor joist or like an open web steel joist where they're getting strength in a smaller package because of the way this is actually cut. I think that's a real innovation from Fair & Forge. And I really, really like that. One of the things I do notice and I do pay attention to is just how thin that relief cut gets. Here's a reasonable one. I'm trying to see if I've got one that's really, really thin. I guess I don't. Yeah, all of these are pretty good, but I have seen tie frame locks where this relief cut, they've left like hardly any material, and it makes them easy to work, but it also reduces the strength, okay? So although titanium is strong, it's not the end all and be all. There are definitely stronger locks than the tie frame lock, probably the triad lock being the most standout example, but people have even argued that a liner lock, like on the Division, is stronger than a frame lock because of the fact that there's stability given by the G10 handle scales or whatever kind of scales are on that particular lock or particular knife. Here's another example of a liner lock. Again, you've got these thick carbon fiber scales and a fairly thin lock, but people have argued, and I can certainly see the sense in it, that there's some extra stability provided by those handle scales, and that makes perfect sense. Okay. Finally, I think we like titanium because of its simplicity. You can do an integral lock if you were working in aluminum or G10 or other materials. Now stainless steel, I do have some stainless steel frame locks that function quite well, although they're ridiculously heavy. But simplicity of design is, I think, another thing that we like and that designers like about titanium frame locks. Now what about drawbacks? Because there are some drawbacks. Titanium wears. Here's a couple of examples. Both of these have some very minor. Okay, this one has barely any. Okay, so it's not maybe a good example. This one does have a little mark here where something just rubbed against it and messed up the finish. Okay, so titanium can be a little delicate. And I don't know about you, but when I want a knife that I can carry day in and day out and use all the time, I don't want delicate to be a part of the description, okay? Now, some places, I think Zero Tolerance is one of my favorites in terms of how they finish their knives for wear and tear. I've carried a lot of Zero Tolerances for a long time, and the marks don't show up. But on a finish like this, that's on the TI Military, you're going to get some snail trails on it over time. This finish on the Ferrex is pretty good as well. Of course, the black wash finish is really, really good. It hides practically any type of wear and tear. But a high polish that I'm working on putting on this, a really nicely polished titanium, really shows any little nick or scratch or anything. Okay, so wear. In addition to wear on the handle, on the look of your knife, titanium will wear on the lock face, okay? Because titanium, although it has a reputation for being super hard, it's actually not that hard. It's softer than steel, and so the steel blade tang will eventually wear the lock face on this lock bar, and you're going to get the lock bar drifting over more and more and more over time, all right? So that's another drawback of titanium. Finally, one last drawback. So we've got wear and tear, okay? We've got, so wear and tear is number one. Number two is cost per performance. Okay, titanium is a fairly expensive material, and this titanium military is not really going to outperform the G10 military, but it's going to cost more. Okay, so you're paying more for no more performance with a titanium blade because of the fact that titanium just costs more. So one of the drawbacks of titanium is if you made any one of these knives but just used steel and G10 or aluminum or something else, here's a perfect example. So here's a great blade. It's got a really high-end steel, it's extremely well made, but it's an aluminum handle, and so this knife is like, I don't know, $70 knife. Maybe this is the CTS XHP, so let's say it's $100, okay? But $100, you're not gonna get a titanium knife, very few, for that price, okay? So you're paying a little extra for really no extra performance, okay? Finally, it's weight, all right? Lots of blades here. All of these knives, when you pick them up, you know you picked something up. So titanium is metal. You know, yes, it's light and strong, and so compared to other metals, it does fairly well for weight, but it's still metal. It's not light. It's not like carbon fiber. It's not like G10. These materials can be very light, and knives made with them can be very lightweight. All right, titanium, you're gonna get some extra weight, and you have to be willing to sacrifice that and say, okay, I don't mind carrying a little extra because I really think it's cool to have titanium. All right, so those are the positives and negatives as I see it. There could be more that we could add. I guess one thing that I should add is one cool thing about titanium is you can do some things to it yourself. You could anodize it yourself with heat or electricity. You could refinish it with different sandpapers and different, you know, with a Dremel tool, different things like that. And that's kind of cool too if you're into modding knives. So if you're looking for a titanium frame lock, what do you look for? Number one, look for something you're going to carry, okay? If it's a knife that's too fancy and you're going to be afraid to break it, I've sold a number of tie frame locks for no other reason than I just didn't feel comfortable carrying them. You know, they were too nice, and I was constantly worried that I was going to mark it up or I was going to drop it, and I was like, I'm not interested in that. Okay, so all of these that I've shown you, I think I've got a couple more tie frame locks in my collection, but all the ones that I've shown you here, one of the things I really like is I feel comfortable carrying them all the time in pretty well all circumstances without being worried about what could happen to my knife, okay? So that's one of the things that I would look for if I was you looking to buy a tie frame lock. You need to consider how much money you want to spend, because titanium frame locks go all the way from like $110 up to, right, who knows, the sky's the limit when you get into customs. So think about what you want to spend first, okay? Don't get too obsessed. Now there are some features that you want to look for, and some of these features are harder to find in the really low end blades. Let me use the, okay. So in the 0630, you have a stainless steel lock bar insert, and that lock bar insert also functions as an over travel stop. So you can't push this too hard. There's an actual stop that goes back behind the frame, so you can't overextend this lock bar. And that's a really cool feature, and you're going to want to look for that if you're buying a tie frame lock. Look for how the pocket clip attaches. Look for any versatility that you want. So maybe you want to be able to put blue hardware like this on your knife. Well, that's not possible for every tie frame lock, okay? You may want to be aware of that kind of going in. So look for all of those things. Consider the kind of knife you want and the kind of design you want and what you want it to do before you buy. Finally, don't get caught up in the hype, okay? This Brose Blades division is one of my favorite, it's a mini division, one of my favorite blades. I love it, okay? And it doesn't have a bit of titanium in it, and that does not affect how much I like it. That does not affect how well it performs. It doesn't really affect anything. And a few weeks ago, I remember watching a video, I want to say it was about a Microtech SOCOM, and one of the things the guy said was, well, if I'm spending this much money for a knife, I wanted to have titanium. And I'm like, really? Come on, man. Like, titanium is just another material. Sure, it's a good material. Sure, it's cool. It's awesome to own knives that are made in titanium. But it shouldn't be the end-all and be-all. You know, it shouldn't be a deal breaker that just because a knife isn't offered in titanium, it's like no good. You know, I've got another knife. So I've got 3 knives here, all really awesome knives. All knives that I really like, all knives that I carry all the time. No titanium in any of these, and yet they're all great and just as good as, you know, a lot of the other ones that are here that do have titanium, okay? So that's the other thing I would say is don't get too caught up. Yes, it's a cool material. It's not the strongest. It's not the most durable. It's, you know, it's a good material. It makes great knives, but it's not the only acceptable material for a good quality folding knife. Okay, So there you go, guys. That's my rant. That's my discussion of titanium frame locks. I'll give you one last look at all the blades that I have shown you. Here's the 0562. Here is the Forge Ferrex. Here is the TI Military 0630. Boker Federal 0560. Maybe I didn't put this one in the video, but there it is anyway. 0560. 0801. And those are all the tie frame locks I brought. The non-titanium, I've got the Brous Blades Division, Cold Steel Code 4, and the Viper Maga. Okay? Hope you enjoyed the video and the discussion. Go ahead and put your comments in below, and we'll talk to you soon.